Golden State Media Concepts bring you Book Review Podcast, a haven for bookworms of all ages and the widest genres, from mystery to memoirs, romance to comedy, fantasy to sci-fi. If you love to read, this is the podcast for you. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast.
GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah. I am here again with another podcast, with another author interview, with another day. I hope your day is going great. I hope that whatever you have planned or whatever you're doing is what you want it to be, whether that's productive or lazy or a combination thereof. I really like those days that are a combination thereof. You know, like on a weekend when you have that perfect combination of getting things accomplished that need to be done, but also plenty of time to be lazy and read or catch up on your Netflix binging or whatever that might be. I really like when I have that perfect balance. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does, and then I like it. Of course, there has to be not only the work and the relaxing, but there needs to be some puppy snuggles in every one of my days. So that has to be a must. And you know, you're gonna think it's weird, but bearded dragon snuggles. I've mentioned the puppies a lot. I don't know how much I talk about our bearded dragons, but they're really very sweet. I know you're sitting there thinking, "What? They're a lizard? They're not sweet." They are sweet, and they actually are snuggly. So that was not where I expected this intro to go. But hey, bearded dragons, sweet, snuggly. What are you going to do? Let's talk. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about a book. I'm going to talk about the book Ace Boon Coon by author Danny Gardner. This is the second in his Elliot Caprice series. The first book is called A Negro and an Ofe, and this, as I said, is the second. Let me go ahead and give you the description of Ace Boon Coon. It's 1950s Illinois, and Elliot Caprice has returned to his rural Southville homestead to help his uncle save the family farm, which is struggling through a drought. As racial tensions between agricultural workers rise, a murder pulls Elliot back to Chicago, with his ties to both Jewish and Negro organized crime factions are discovered during a clash of competing interests around the development of a long-awaited Chicago campus of the University of Illinois. When pressures from federal agents representing Estes Kefauver's Special Committee on Organized Crime, along with the Nation of Islam, wealthy white potential investors, a shadowy force called the White Circle League, close in, Elliot must race to connect a money trail to two more murders to thwart the destruction of Southville before forces combine to destroy Elliot. Now, I, as you know, was a history major. I find the history of Chicago to be pretty fascinating in its complexity. We did talk a lot about at least the political history of Chicago in my survey course. You know, that first American history course that you take in school. Oftentimes it can be, you know, required, kind of a general ed kind of thing. And we did talk a lot about the political history and the political machines and the craziness. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. Read possibly the worst book ever for me. It could have been a great book. It just did not engage my attention. I can't even remember what it was called, but it did give me some insight into the wowness of Chicago politics and history. But what I like about this book is that, you know, in that class, obviously it was a survey course, so we did a little bit on Chicago history and politics, but didn't do a deep dive into anything. And so it was pretty one-sided, pretty white in its perspective. And what I like about books like this then is that I get to see a lot of different aspects of that same area, but through different eyes. I mean, Chicago has a complicated history in terms of politics, but also there was a lot of influx of Black people from the South during the Great Migration. That changed the face of Chicago. It changed the composition of Chicago, and obviously it changed how people interacted with each other. And so, as we talked about with the book several months ago, or I have no sense of time, but the Lake of Darkness was a different perspective into Chicago history, and that was also from a Black protagonist's perspective, as is this. And we get to know, in this one, it's not only a Black perspective, it is a person of mixed race, so you get that trying to be in both worlds conflict, and then you've also got his ties, as it says, to both Jewish and Negro organized crime, so you get a bit of the Jewish perspective. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of different historical layers going on at this time period with this book. So not only if you want to read a good mystery, but if you want to read a mystery that is going to give you maybe a different perspective on a time period, or maybe it's not a different perspective. Maybe you already know some of this stuff, but you want to check it out anyway. So very happy to have a different perspective, to have some great representation in terms of mystery with a Black male protagonist. And so, again, the book is called Ace Boon Coon. It is the second of the Tales of Elliot Caprice series, and the author is Danny Gardner, with whom I am going to turn this over to. So we're going to turn now to that interview with Danny.
Hi, Danny. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
I am happy to have you here. We're here to talk about your second book in your Elliot Caprice series. But before we get to that book and the series, can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Danny Gardner. If it's some Hollywood product I was associated with, you may find me under Daniel Gardner. And I have enjoyed a career writing professionally since I was 19, when I was fortunate enough to do stand-up comedy on television on third season of Def Comedy Jam. And so I left college to do that. And while I was at college, I was studying journalism. And my grandfather, John Wayman Gardner Sr., was involved in Black American newspapers in the same era that I write about, which is one of my inspirations. So while I've been around the written word, I was expected to go into business. So I kind of freaked everybody out when I quit Columbia College and started doing stand-up. But that's how I became a professional, accidentally, just by being funny. So I've had a good time in life, enjoying careers in screenwriting. I've produced a few features. I've successfully directed one. And every once in a while, I'll put myself out there for an acting job just to keep my SAG after benefits together. But I'm always influenced by all three of those career choices each time I sit down to write a novel, and I'm starting to accept that my adventurous career beginnings perhaps help me develop a skill set that makes it more interesting for me to weave these tales of Elliot Caprice.
Well, that is definitely a different story than some that I have heard before as to how you got here. Has your family settled down now? They've calmed down and accepted your career as opposed to business?
Not at all. Not at all.
No. Okay. No. Good to know.
I could have a Netflix stand-up special. My older brother and my aunt, they're not gonna watch it. So it's just we're moving on. We're moving on. I think my brother read my books. I'm not sure. I think my older brother read my book. But, I'm the youngest, man. I get to mess up a little bit. And I have made good in other areas. So, and I'm succeeding. I mean, it ain't like they're finding me in the bargain basement, man. I mean, I'm not at the dollar store, right? So it's okay.
That's right. That's right. No, I completely understand. Family systems are fun. Let's talk about the Elliot Caprice series. This is the second book that we're talking about today, Ace Boon Coon. But can you start with the first book a little bit and kind of give an overview of the series?
Oh, yeah. Well, I based the Tales of Elliot Caprice in the 50s in what I consider to be the capital of Black America, which is Cook County, Illinois, Chicagoland. it's the seat of the arrivals of the Great Colored Migration that brought the labor force from the agrarian South up to the industrial North. And with that, and two back-to-back wars with poor Europe, Black folks found their way into a middle class in the 1950s that paved the way for a guy like Obama to come along in the early aughts. And so I feel that that Black American landscape was overdue for a Black American detective. And so I consider the series to be specifically a Black American mystery series, as opposed to, say, a British mystery series in the way that Agatha Christie would be delineated, or American mystery as you would find in Raymond Chandler. And then a few generations later, you can have a Mickey Spillane that apes and lives within Raymond Chandler. Well, these things are specific forms. Folks will teach them in college. They'll do things in college with this kind of stuff. They'll stand on it. They'll give out awards for it. So I just felt that Black America needed a detective. There is a distinct Black America. The Tales of Elliot Caprice is a Black American mystery series that's set in existential Black America, where if you're Black, there's a Black America and you got to live in it, and it's a little different. And it's a home away from home. It's a world within your world already. And so where this Black America runs parallel to what some may consider to be a true America, they're actually twin rails of an entire American experience. And now, as a Black American mystery writer who's covering a genre in a Black American consciousness that may have room for its own take on a Black American existence, I set out to write a mystery series about a guy that 44 million people in America could totally recognize as like their uncle, their cousin, their pops, and put him in life situations that require an understanding of all Americans from within their cultural and social points of view. And that's what I managed to do with the first book, A Negro in an Ofe, showing you struggles from within a Black American-centric world's appearance, but it's the same America, it's the same thing, it's the same politics, it's the same shootouts, it's the same bullets, car chases. I'm honoring all of the tenets of the genre. I love the tropes. I live with them comfortably. They keep me warm at night. I'm just making certain I'm remaining Black-centered. No different than an African writer would remain African-centered. An Irish writer is free to remain Irish-centered. And whereas Chester Himes or Walter Mosley may write American mystery that is featuring Black American themes, cultural mores, and characters, I am writing a Black American mystery where the Blackness is in the wallpaper, it's in the water, it's in the air you breathe. We don't even talk about it. Everybody in here in Black America is Black, so we don't break down the Black. We treat the Black as being the constant, and we bring everyone else into it. And take of it what you will, and make of it some sense for yourself. It's new. I set out to do something a little different, maybe to pay back my peoples for the Def Comedy Jam thing. I'm trying to be too smart about this maybe now. I'm trying to be too collegiate maybe. But there's a real place called Black America, and it's lovely. And we take things from it all the time. And we find strength and healing from it all the time. And I gave that world a detective. That's all.
Well, and I love it because, representation matters and people need to see themselves and their culture and their world in books, instead of just kind of being a secondary character or what have you. So I love that. Yeah. And yes, you are right. I can see several of my in-laws in some of the characters in this book. So I had a couple of chuckles. I was like, "Oh, look, Uncle Walter."
We all in common. We all have that. We're all the same underneath it all. We pick out differences to make ourselves feel better. That's all.
So that's the series overview, and now talk a little bit about the overview for Ace Boon Coon. What's going on with Elliot in this book?
Okay, well, last we left him, he saved his uncle's farm and got it out of receivership with the county bank. Around the same time, as folks sniffing around the family farm because of struggling during the drought, the same year he gets the farm back, there's no water in Illinois, right? Then there are land grabs successively throughout the American Midwest where poor people, immigrants, namely Jewish and Slavic, and Black Americans who had held land in the North since before DuSable was selling it, everyone starts losing their land to these land grant colleges that all the GIs are promised in World War II. And that creates politics. Nobody does politics better than Chicago. And the project...
I was just thinking that. Holy buckets.
that we love it. If we can make some politics out of no politics, we'll do it. And Elliot Caprice finds his farm and his uncle and his work associates are pulled into the same corrupt mess that conspires to have the poor Black and Jewish enclave of Maxwell Street torn apart to create the new University of Illinois campus in Chicago. A couple of dead bodies wind up in Elliot's hometown that shouldn't be there, and it traces back to that project. And then a lot of old things that Elliot did to get through a Negro and an Ofe come back to haunt him when he needs to go home to Black Chicago and pay for the ways in which he stood against the Black underworld during his time working for the Kefauver Committee and then getting screwed by the FBI in the process. So we've come full circle at this point. The demons that Elliot is running from about his time on the Chicago Police Department are going to be at his heels, while the Black underworld, on the heels of Sam Giancana assassinating two leaders, wants to have a chat with him about where he was around the same time during the events of a Negro and an Ofe. And if he doesn't get that farm to start making money, the vultures are going to encircle around his uncle and then take away everything he has, because labor wars about migrant workers that are up from the South clashing with veterans who are starving because America's promises have failed them are about to start making a crazy hostile racial environment for everyone in the Midwest that we remember from history actually occurred. And so Elliot's got to race against time to find the malfeasances, find the murderers, and then make certain that he is able to get clear of the misconceptions of what he was doing when he was trying to be this reluctant hero in the first book. And hopefully it's tighter, it's shorter. You know, I've been working on it, and I put my foot in it, man. I did. I knew I got another turn at the apple. I know everybody liked the first one, and I knew I better just go for it. So I stretched myself, I pushed myself, and I really hope everyone can feel the dedication that I held to getting better this time around, because I really wanted to write a better book for y'all.
I am going to jump in here so we can take our first break of the podcast, but now you've got a bit of a better sense of the story involved in Ace Boon Coon, as well as the series, The Tales of Elliot Caprice. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the time period, all the different elements that go into the historical aspects of this book. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
GSMC Book Review Podcast. I am speaking today with author Danny Gardner about his new book, Ace Boon Coon. Let's go ahead and turn back to that interview.
In terms of Elliot and the time period, obviously you've got a lot of different elements coming together in terms of the drought and the land grant and the murders. But how have you, as an author, I mean, I always talk to authors who are just making horrible things happen to their main character. How is that something that you kind of figure out ahead of time what you're going to put Elliot through this time around, or does it sort of evolve as you write?
Yeah, I will cop to a bit of autobiography in this series, in that Elliot feels like me in my 30s. And I was prone to acting boldly, even rashly. And so what we've done for him in this book is put him in the same situations that every other Black and or poor working American was going through in Chicago at the time, plus give him the full breadth of his backstory to make his life's adventures the context in which he himself is coming into vogue. He himself is coming into his place in this history that created my grandparents and my parents. And so he's losing the farm is at risk. He's surrounded by bigots who are controlling the airwaves and passing out these crazy pamphlets and, keeping people from voting and stuff that happens all the time. And it's not specific to him. I won't do the poor boy dirty. I love Elliot, but it's hard to be a man who lives full-throated and not after the world's opinion. And you're half Black and you're half white. You're never good for anybody. Good enough for anybody. You're never enough of anyone for anyone. And you are facing down a world that, now that it's flush with globalism as a result of World War II, and it's flush with dollars as a result of World War II, everyone feels that it's their American destiny to be better than everyone else. And Elliot finds himself torn between a burgeoning civil rights movement that seems to want to tell Black people how to be Black. Elliot deals with a white world that is finding even more constraints upon non-white people, but during a boon, an economic boon and a social and a cultural boon, like the post-war 50s. So, yeah, this all happened to him, and I just sort of figured, what if it was happening to him in his house? And it gets a little easier, right? Because that's the part where I want to make, because the life of a Black American is indeed a racial existence. So we need not point out the race as if it's a touch point. It's the paint on the walls. It's the carpet on the floor. It's the air Elliot breathes. It's just, okay, we got murders. I got some shootouts. I got some car chases. I got to serve the genre, and I got to be Black on top of it. That's what my series is. I got to be everything Raymond. I got to be everything Philip Marlowe is, and I got to be Black, dog. Is that what it is? That's kind of how I'm rolling with that. It's a little ignorant. I'm a comedian. Maybe I'll get away with it, but that's the way I try to motivate his struggles. What would his struggles be if he just lived according to his own manifest destiny, but in that region, in that house, in that period? I mean, yeah, I think sometimes, because my granddad was an interesting fellow, and a lot of Elliot's quips come from him, and I just wonder. I would look at this man, and I was born in 1971. I'm looking at my grandfather in the 90s, and I'm just wondering, man, how did you not get lynched for your mouth? How did you not? You were so bold, you were so brash, you were so angry about everything, and you were walking around Chicago in the 50s. How did you not get into a fist fight every day? I did. I mean, it's just so it's just, yeah, if you were meant to exist, man, woman, child, no matter, and forces conspired against you to offer you your existence on condition of conformity, you're going to be one or two kind of people. And Elliot's one kind. And, you know, you put that person in, doesn't matter what race you put them in. Doesn't matter what class you put them in. You let that person get a hold of their own dissatisfaction on a good day, and they just might kick a whole lot of butt to change the world around them so they can get some sleep. And that's what I think I do in these plots. Like, man, what if you were just a regular dude or regular gal or regular, you know, whomever, and trying to just do your own thing in life, and somebody just came over and mucked up your sandbox in your backyard? There you go. Let's take it back to the basics. You grew, you changed, you adapted, you exist, and now you want to be left be. Well, yeah, that's pretty much my main character. And it used to be me when I was a little younger and I didn't know where I belonged. And I feel that the caustic rogue heart of the average young Black American could be calmed by a sense of civic duty that is related to the civic pride that could come from acceptance. And so if I just keep on writing these Black mysteries and these black heroes as if they're just the norm, I hope that the acceptance that would calm the angry Black heart in America will come, and then we'll put some foot to butt about some of the problems that we have that we've already solved, and we can take lessons from history to know exactly how we came together for those solutions. So if I give you a little history, and if I give you a little truth-telling, and if I give you the same thing that you want in a good mystery novel, I might infect you with some of my ideas about how perhaps we don't need innovation, perhaps we just need acceptance. That's just kind of the mix I'm blending in with this whole thing. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I'm inspired to say in response to your question.
All right. Well, thank you for that, and also nice save with the but comment.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Handle that.
No
I
problem.
Sometimes I blow it in the car, so I apologize.
Not a problem. But also, that's just it's both a really wonderful goal with your writing, but it also do you ever feel like that puts a lot of kind of pressure on you to incorporate all of those elements, or is that just kind of how you think anyway?
Well, I'll answer it this way. If I would have had to cover all of this in an audition when I was 22 years old, I might have resented it. If, I was writing a screenplay I did some work for DreamWorks once. I got lucky and got a job. My next door neighbor was nice enough to hire me when I needed a gig, and they wound up liking my stuff. Not enough to go all the way, but they paid me to work on something for, a few weeks, and it's enough to help you get your name out there. And so, and I look at it as, where's the water? And, there's a time to state preference. And there's a time to regard personal preference as instructive. But there's the collective upon which personal experience depends. And after watching the dawning of the Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement, all that run through publishing at a time when I was succeeding and exposed to it, and then watching it mushroom throughout with the current movements that we have all happening simultaneously, if I don't satisfy nature's call to be equally as relevant as just about every other interested person in media and culture and entertainment, then I'm going to be out of step with the times. And therefore, my inspiration and therefore the energy to create according to that inspiration animates within me, because I'm willing to be present in the same moment in culture as everyone else. And right now, everyone else is on this Black Lives Matter, and everyone else is on this hands off my body without talking to me first. And everyone's on this, hey, don't children have a say-so in this world that we're creating for them? And if I just try to go home and write my comfy mysteries, and what's that saying? I don't like people like that. I like folks who's going to put on some gloves, lace them up, come outside, and start some mischief to point out what we could be doing better. And these are them times. And perhaps it's the stand-up comedian in me, perhaps it's the rebel in me. But yeah, okay, do I want to teach free African studies for 5 years again, like I did to establish myself with a Negro and an Ofe? No, I don't want to do that. Do I want to be the guy on every panel that may speak to a particular condition of a particular community every time? Nah, yeah, I get bugged about that. But hey, man, these are serious times. And the inspiration to dig deep and rise to match the other voices in serious times, I mean, that produced Invisible Man with Ralph Ellison. He was contemporaries with Chester Himes, getting into bar fights with freaking James Baldwin. We got to mix it up. I don't, and then I've learned a thing or two about being precious about certain things. And yes, I should be able to write without having to get involved in all of this racial madness. But then, relevancy is relevancy, and when the zeitgeist is here and you ain't in it, ain't nobody reading your books anyway. So better to just give it all I got. And I have like a cozy mystery plan that has nothing to do with race at all. I'm really going to try one day. It may even have a cat in it. So I'll wait for that to happen. But for right now, I got to write some bombs along with everybody else's bombs, and I hope my bombs fit in. And I hope people find out the bombs I'm throwing. That's all.
Cozy mystery. It has to have a cat in it.
No, I'm telling you, man. I'm writing a cozy mystery about my Auntie Beverly. And
nice.
How it's a cozy mystery about a black lady and a husband who's retired from the fire department. Like,
perfect.
I don't know. That'll be fun. That won't be angry. I won't make that one an angry.
But in regards to what you were saying, you don't want to be tone deaf either. Maybe you want to write cozy mysteries, but you also don't want to be tone deaf in terms of what's going on in the greater world. So
yeah, exactly. When at mass, you kneel when everyone else kneels, or you're an idiot. And right now, everybody's kneeling on these issues, and everybody's kneeling on the zeitgeist. I'm not going to be the fool standing there with his hands in his pocket looking at his phone during church. I'm going to kneel with everyone else, and I'm going to be somber, and we're going to do this. And then maybe one day I'll be able to write a comic book or something and won't have to worry about all this madness.
There you go. Can you give the background behind the title of the book, Ace Boon Coon? ABC.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's kind of cool too. But each one of these books are titled with innuendo, but also concrete meaning. And a Negro and an Ofe is stitched into the fabric of the book. Elliot is searching for what he believes in the first book as a Negro and an Ofe who have an understanding of the whereabouts of a certain someone that's critical in a rich person's entire estate being granted in death. And so Elliot himself is also a Negro and an Ofe. He's half black, he's half white. And also America is the product of a black and white mirror kind of Janus, same face, the same look facing away from each other, never being able to see each other's face, but connected at the back of the head. That's what black and white is in this country. And so you see how the title is serving the work, but yet being provocative, because I'm calling people Negroes and Ofes. You know what I mean? So I've got your attention. And then, but that book was about halves becoming wholes, you see. The black and the white journeying throughout 78,000 words to find their way back to reintegration with each other. That was the first book. Ace Boon Coon is about friendship and its perils and its moral costs beyond anything. Before someone's the same race as you, before they're the same flag as you, before they're the same uniform as you, they're a friend. And your best friend is your ace. But when you black, that's your Ace Boon Coon, because you got friends from everywhere, but your best black friend is the one that you don't have to explain anything to. He's the one you count on it because he's suffering, same as you. So I may have many friends, yet only one friend at a time can be my best friend. That's my ace Boon Coon. Maybe low down and dirty, but that's my friend when I need a friend. And what bedfellows are we creating for one another, and what obligations personally to remaining in these white, black, rich, poor, angry constructs, as opposed to blending somewhere in the friendship space and seeing how, if you're friends, what screws one of you screws all of you, so you can stand together. But you got to make friends to be able to stand together. And in America, we make it too risky to make friends with people who are a bit unlike us. And we can stop doing that. And that's what Ace Boon Coon is about. You're going to have a lot of friends, but the friend who could bring you down the lowest is your Ace Boon Coon. The friend that you care for the most, the friend that you will walk away from anything in the world to save. That's the riskiest friend that you got. So make certain that you know how that friend moves you into what that friend inspires you to do. And I think in many ways, Black America needs a new best friend because white America keep getting us in a lot of trouble. I think that sometimes, like, my mama see me come home with one too many schoolyard fights and say I need some new friends. Well, we're doing a lot of fighting. And we're doing a lot of disagreeing about stuff that I've seen us satisfy across at least 2 generations. Maybe we just need supervision. Maybe we need new dialogue. Maybe we should really examine what all this togetherness seems to be. Because it starts with friendship, commonality, making certain that we discover ways in which we may have mutual ownership of things, even if it's a frickin' playground, even if it's a dog park. Can 2 black folks, 2 white folks, an Asian, and a couple of Latinos, or do I have to say it with the X in it? I never know. It sounds silly. I'm from the Midwest. They don't let us talk that way. Just Latinos, Latinas, right? Let's just get a dog park. Call it Rainbow Dog Park, and after 6 months, if nobody's killed each other and no dogs are dead, we could probably fix America. It doesn't take much more than that. Make a friend. Find a friend. Consider what your friendship obligations are doing to your perception. Do you love your friends more than you love reality? Do your friends love being white and racist more than they love reality? Well, maybe you should just go get you on the Bumble and find you some new homies. You can keep them homies. You need perspective. And just take the risk. I don't mind telling you, in Ace Boon Coon, Elliot finds himself an unlikely coalition builder by being honest about the ways he himself is getting screwed. And it makes interesting players in the chain honest about the ways they're getting screwed. But no one wants to be the one to admit that it's not good. Nobody wants to admit that they haven't seen a royalty check from a publisher in 20 years. Nobody wants to admit that they can't play the big room in Vegas anymore. Everybody wants you to think that their thing is working perfect. But if you got a friend, you and your homie will be serious with each other. And you be like, man, you got it made in the shade in this book thing. And then your homie Joe Clifford says, dude, pull up a chair because I'm going to teach you the game. And it is nothing the way you believe. Joe's black, I'm white. I'm black, Joe's white. They would sit us across the room from each other in something. If it was a VoucherCon panel, they'd never put us on the same panel. And yet that dude has been my lifeline. Joe Clifford, the white boy, is my Ace Boon Coon in publishing. And that's sort of the admixture, right? The alchemy of humanity, your friends. You can get a fast friend at the playground. Your older brother don't want to take you. He's mean. Next thing you know, it's 2 kids. They look like they might be from here. They might not, but they both like the jungle gym, and I got the gift of gab, and I'm 5 years old, and I still got those friends in my life. That's all we need. We eliminate the fissures of experience so that these people have good textbooks
And these people have good textbooks. And everybody's got an amusement park if they can get to one and they got the money. You just even it out according to what's normal. Let people enjoy in friendship and commonality. And at some point, someone's going to start a newsletter about what could be better. The thing you got to do if you're in power is don't suppress what's born in that dynamic. Give them space. Give them printing. Give them resources. Give them organization. Give them protection. Once people start looking like they're working it out for themselves, help them out. But instead, we say you should be with this type of person. You should read this type of person. If you were anybody that was decent, you wouldn't associate with these people. And all of a sudden, our abilities to come together, not by the ways in which we're different, but the ways in which we endeavor to persist, they get interrupted. And then, yeah, it's easy to see that some dude across the street from you who you lived across the street from your whole life is making your property values drop, like the theme in the book, Boon Coon. Like, it isn't until the bank draws a red line between an Irish side and a black side that the Irish and blacks in Chicago start fighting. Because I'm 22% Scots-Irish, because probably just some Scots-Irish folks was in Chicago working with these black folks, and, you know, all of the folks on my mama's side of the family was pretty. But we can't have that now, because there's got to be agency, and, you know, did you really fall in love, or was it white supremacy telling you? You know, or hey, how do I know that you know, you're not going to get your culture in my peanut butter? Like, it's madness. So mix it up, put it all in a beaker, make rock soup, do whatever you must do, but eliminate the constructs that prevent you from connecting. Now, sometimes we got to connect over difficult things, and those connections will produce some conflicts that we got to sort out. We mustn't be afraid of conflict. Conflict is a form of connection. And in the beginning, we may have conflict as we connect, but after a while, if we stick with it, and friends always stick with it, then we'll work through the conflicts and keep the connections. I had to be friends with a lot of people from a lot of different communities growing up, and I wasn't always allowed to play in certain people's backyards. Some of my white friends, I could only see them at school. You know, other of my black friends, I could only see them at school. But yet, I was allowed to find friendship, commonality amongst others, and discuss what my life was like with people whose life may have been different or may not have been different at all. I was in a position to work that out for myself, but we are losing those spaces. And we must fight to claim space. And when economies shift, folks want their land back to make money with it. Folks want the charity back. Law enforcement's got to get refocused. You're just hating on who should be your friend because they're the wrong race. They're the wrong something, and the two of you aren't going to vote together to stop somebody from ripping you off. So that's why I title my books the way I do, and that's why I try to leave, you know, open manhole covers. You know what I mean? Like, just so you don't fall into other aspects of the story, because it's your story. There's nothing happening in Black America that isn't as American as anything else in America. And all of America is free to take its inspiration and to take its comforts from Black America, because it's American. It's just Black. And that's your America as much as it's my America. But there are people who will tell you it's not, on both sides or all sides. And we don't need that. That doesn't help me sell more books. That doesn't help me get invited to more interviews like this one. It doesn't help me make friends. And it certainly doesn't help me protect myself from the things I otherwise wouldn't understand, that maybe my ace Boon Coon, who's watching my back, can see, even if I, with a beleaguered life under stress, can't pay attention to myself. And that's the message for that book, without giving away the plot or anything. We just got to stop fooling each other, and we've got to stop being so gullible about the bad things. The world's not falling apart. Everyone doesn't want to kill each other. There doesn't have to be a race war. Everybody could just sit down, maybe read a book by somebody who doesn't look like them every once in a while. and talk in the spirit of friendship. And every once in a while, if we got to throw some dukes up, you know, I mean, hey, man, I'm from Chicago. But we'll be okay if we just stick together. Friendship, moral values, associating, building communities, and just not quitting on each other. So that's the book in a nutshell. You'll see it. It's short, 72,000 words. You'll get through it.
Well, and I think, to what you were just saying, we have to get rid of a lot of fear also in order to make those spaces, because I think fear drives a lot of what creates those conflicts and creates the inability to communicate appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So
fear prevents laughter, and laughter, without laughter, there's no love. So if we just keep laughing, we'll be just fine.
Well, there is a decent amount of laughter in this interview, I think. So we should be okay-ish, right? All right, I have to back up. It was a while ago, but the part of the interview where Danny was talking about someday he's going to write a cozy mystery, and maybe it's going to involve a cat. The crazy thing is that when I was preparing to put up this episode, edit, do all that fun stuff, I went online to look at the description of the book, because I have a copy that does not have the description on the back of it. So I went to look. I was on Amazon, and the suggested for you books that came up with this book were, seriously, I swear to you, a cozy cat trilogy. It was a cozy cat mystery trilogy. The internet hears everything, even though apparently they read my thoughts and presented me with cozy cat mystery trilogy, because why would that come up when I type in this particular book, which has nothing to do with cats, but it is a mystery. I don't know. That is my random story for you for the day. We're going to take that break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the research that went into this book. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast. Cozy Cat Mystery Trilogies aside, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention back to this particular book that we're talking about, which is Ace Boon Coon by author Danny Gardner.
What kinds of research did you do for this book?
I should have tried to get a degree. I read like 8 PhD papers, and I have really worked on some, and I've read a few books. I could give you some titles, but the stuff that I really got into was research papers established from historical research outlets and historical institutions. And I've read more than my fair share of what it means to create a nationwide bias program called redlining. I've read cover-to-cover books on the ties between the black underworld and the Jewish underworld in Chicago in the 1920s. I give you a full bibliography if anybody wants to email me. I don't think anybody wants to read this much history if they're not a student, but I really got to the marrow of what I didn't know about the way we are governed,
about the way we are supported by government, even in some of the things that we are set up to choose for ourselves that ain't within our best interest. And that came from a bunch of serious hot textbooks, man. Let's see, I'll get you a couple of titles right now. You know, just to validate.
Serious hot textbooks.
Yeah, I had to read. I did. I did too much homework for this book, but it just got interesting. It just got so interesting. Like, let me open up where's my Kindle thing? I never really know. Amazon's weird now. It used to be that it worked a little bit, but let's see, what do I have? In my own private Kindle account, I have Hey, Danny. Yeah, I have been in Amazon for 100 years. Where are my books? Let's see. Well, you know what? Let's talk about influences. What's the next question? And I'll find you some book titles. And I don't mean to make you edit, but like this is a really important. This is a really important thing to get right. And it's like I can't find the doggone app on the thing that'll tell me where it is.
Because you're trying to find it.
I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old. I gotta accept it. I gotta accept it. All right. So let me come back to that thing, and I'll have a list for you in like 5 minutes.
Okay, no problem. Let me ask you, what draws you to writing historical fiction as opposed to contemporary fiction?
Oh, man, I really, really loved my family. And my dad, John Jr., and his dad, John Sr., were very striking people. And, there's a lot of talk of the migration and what it meant to America within the past 10 years. There's been some fabulous books about it. Some fiction, some nonfiction. And I always felt that the Black American Renaissance story of Chicago from 1919 to 1969 that gave us the president that everybody wished we still had and created a culture that informs the world from out of that tradition of hard, rugged, Midwestern living and activism. We don't have enough stories about it. And, it's that kind of stuff that is an edge. Any young writer, just write what's in your heart to write and write what you know better than everyone else. Don't write what you think the world wishes to read because they already have that in someone else's book. I started writing the conversations that I heard around the dinner table. I started writing the social rules that I was held to as a young Black kid. I can't tell you how many times I used to hear from some relative, don't bring a white girl in the house. You know what I mean? The same way a Black family would, same way a white family would tell their son or their daughter, I hope you don't date somebody out of your race in college. We have those same kind of conversations. We have those same kind of internal struggles. We have angsty teenagers that have to fight through social mores to become who they really want to be. It's like, man, this is a world of opportunity. Like, there are wonderful aspects of being one with the Black American consciousness, and yet entitled to the promise of America, depending upon your susceptibility to what that may be. And it's an interesting position to be able to sidestep what the mainstream world does to wreck it and come from a place of moral groundedness, knowing that you're Black and your narrative is struggle. And, well, if it's bad, it couldn't possibly be so bad that we did it because, well, we had everybody's got their knee on our neck. But there'll be a day when Black people need to rise to leadership in this country. There'll be a day when the neck of a Black American is 10,000 feet off the ground for the average police officer to want to use it to in their existence. And we better respond to the call of American leadership with a
firm understanding of what made us dope in the first place. Would you want to be on a colony in Mars that's run by like a black mayor or a black president, but there was no Motown on that colony? Right? Like if there was no old Stax Records in that colony, if you couldn't read The Fire Next Time, if you couldn't read any number of books. So yeah, man, that's what we need. Fundamental integrity demands that we remain rooted in the past as we adapt fully into the future. And so while nobody else seems to be writing this nuanced black Midwestern, vibey thing that I got going on the Hollywood side, maybe I'll have it to myself for a little while and establish myself for this voice that I have, that I know what I want to do. And at the same time, I kind of want to force some black people from Baltimore to write something. And I kind of want to, put some stuff out there so people can suck their teeth and go, I can write some black New Jersey mystery. Yeah, we'll do that then. Let's start something. Let's do it. Yeah, let's let it out. Yeah, everybody write their granular mysteries now. Let's do some suburban Chicago mysteries. Let's
do some Atlanta mysteries. Yeah, exactly.
Word up, man. There's stuff that goes on in Atlanta, man, on any cultural dispensation, homie. That is, you might as well be talking about making a Slavic mystery, and you ain't from there. So let's dig in. Let's pull it together. This is mine. That's my contribution. Black Chicago informs the world from the 50s and beyond because of the Tales of Elliot Caprice. Boom, that's mine. Now you show me yours. And I tell you, man, if they just sprouted up like dandelions, what reader would not be happy? So, yeah, that was my motivation. I thought I saw something in black culture and in black history that other writers weren't seeing that spoke to me. And when I started writing it and reading it to other people, it spoke to them too. And I'm hoping I got this thing to myself for a little while. But if I don't, then great. Because it's all our history. And it's all our instructions. It's all of our foundation. It's our bedrock. Doesn't matter what race you are. Doesn't matter how soon you got to America. Black folks bled into this soil. Our tears and bile went into this economy. And we are here. And we exist. And with existence comes abundance. So have at it, folks. Enjoy your black Americanness. It's always been yours. Just, you might have to share it with black folks.
We don't like sharing.
Nobody does until they have to.
No.
And then if sharing's good, it feels good, we might get over it.
That's right. Did you find your list?
Yeah, you know what? I feel like a boob, so I'm just going to have to take it to the iPad. I never understand it. Like, I buy stuff digitally, and I can't. And they just think it's okay. They just think it's fine.
Like on a Kindle or?
Yeah. I got an iPad with the Kindle on it and all this other kind of crap. And I got this app and that app. I used to be a tech guy in the closet, working in Silicon Valley, like as a consultant and stuff privately. And I don't want to admit that I've really kind of lost the pace. And I'm probably better with a pen and a piece of paper. I really am. I can't. I want to still be that programmer. I still want to be that guy that can buy a device and not have to read the manual. But man, if I can't find my glasses, I can't turn on the lights. Right. If I can't find where I put my glasses, I may not be able to lock the front door. It's so weird.
Well, I'm incredibly nearsighted, so if I can't find my glasses, I'm like Velma and Scooby-Doo. I'm like literally on the floor, patting around, trying to find them.
Cool. All right. Now I'm gonna give you some titles. I found my stuff.
All right. See, you just had to keep at it.
Yeah. So if you gotta cut and paste and all that with I'll try to speak salient. Here are a few wonderful titles from my research work on A Negro and an Ofe and Ace Boon Coon in the Tales of Elliot Caprice series. There's a professor at University of Chicago, I believe, or at least he studied there. His name is Ron Shepson, and he is the author of Gangsters of Harlem
He wrote a lovely book called Black Gangsters of Chicago, where I drew a lot of the inspiration for the dynamics in the Negro underworld, and I find to really be exciting. So yeah, Ram checks it, and he's a Chicagoan. He just digs in deep. I'm also reading Eric Lichblau's The Nazis Next Door, and it's talking about how a whole lot of folks who you otherwise wouldn't want coming over to your Midwestern landscape showed up over here, set up shop, man, after like being a rank and file pencil pusher for the Nazi SS. Oh, you mean that's where Mr. Weiss, the gym teacher, came from? Yeah, that's where he came from. And it's just a lot of mixing of technologies in post-war America, and the economy blew wide open. There was nothing about like the space race in the Nazi regime. There was nothing about the arms race in the Nazi regime that didn't look like a box of files that, you know, the FBI wanted to bring home. And we wound up inadvertently mixing back into American society most of the folks from the uber racist society in Nazi Germany that we tried to eradicate. Just because visas, migration, and the black middle class was doing so well, we started importing Nazis back into the United States after the war. Well, you know, what'd you do during the war? Oh, I was a farmer during the war. I just wore the uniform because, okay, well, get on in there because the Midwest needs farmers because we just killed a bunch of them fighting. But what's that do for the poor people that have been there for 30 years? What's that do for the communities that sprang up that had another intention for their land? This book goes into that and gets into a deep affair with the balancing of the needs of one's material world, but their moral world is going to be compromised because of it. I see it all the time. Now, I thought I would see something like that growing up and having to deal, like in the 80s and 90s with street gangs and all of that. Sort of, a bunch of books like The Almighty Black Pea Stone Nation is a good book. It's Natalie Moore wrote it with Lance Williams. And it's a really good book, and it's about how we tribe up in these ridiculous constructs. But before there was a Nazi Germany, them dudes was just a bunch of dudes wearing the same colors, carrying and the same boots, walking around, reading the same books, and drinking in coffee houses, talking the same crap. And if we understand how we align ourselves, how we tribe up with each other, and how these ideas become introduced into these constructs that we create with other people to feel safe, then we can do something different with the stories that we tell one another about our condition. And maybe we won't keep trying to solve society's problems by busting the face of another person. Maybe we'll start looking at it as we're not doing enough in these areas. And I find that deep historical research, when we write these novels, one, it makes the writing better, but also somebody else went out of their way. If I can read one book by one historian that allows me to set my character world and everything that I hope to achieve with my narrative and my metaphor, why wouldn't I read that book? And why wouldn't I enjoy that book? I think a lot of people don't want to do that sort of intellectual research in books because they want to write. Because, writing, I got to get it out. Like I'm going to sit down. I'm that way too. I sit down. I got to set it free. It hurts if I don't write once I've thought about it and obsessed over what I'm writing for so long. And I get that. But what I found was by resisting that pressure on myself, that anticipation energy in my belly that makes me just want to sit down and get it done, and stopping, reading a research paper, reading a research report, picking up the phone and calling an expert, it really put me in a subject matter expert posture. And I'm now able to further my work on the series because I know what my world is rooted in. And that's a good thing. I mean, it gets harder if you're going to keep going in series to make it up. So don't make it up. Hinge it on stuff. I mean, maybe you change the names, or maybe you just take inspiration and you make it your own. But whatever you do, you got to write your Bible, you got to set your world, and then you got to make certain that your world is living. And the way I keep Elliot's world alive is by researching what that world may be from a historical perspective.
And I find that I've always got the right idea at the right time for these 300 characters. You know, I can't write a small book. I got to write 6 worlds inside a book, right? I just make it hard for myself. Well, I keep it straight by having a good background in being scholarly. And I don't mean that to pat myself on the back so much. It's just that where somebody else might be extra creative in their world building, I'm just in love with freaking and tripping out the world that we all share and putting my take on it. So a better understanding of the world around me enables me to do that, and I get that through nonfiction and historical reading and just like nerd reading. You know, going like the click hole, right? Like I'm on Reddit and then I'm on this other thing, and then Wikipedia's got me at 2:00 in the morning, right? And then I buy a book that somebody suggests because of that. That kind of stuff helps me stay in Elliot's world. It doesn't distract me to go do rigorous research and, you know, somewhere within the middle of my draft, right? I find that I was a little nervous in the beginning. I thought I had to get all my homework done to sit down and write my novel. I tried to do that with a Negro and an Ope, but then I wound up getting a few things inaccurate, and I had to go back and fix them. I find to have all my research materials handy, all my browser tabs open, all my legal paths with notes I ain't never going to look at after I write them twice. I find that motivates me to dig back in to the world I'm creating and the story I'm writing rather than distracts me, because I feel firmly rooted. And as long as I'm firmly rooted in what I'm writing, I'm always going to have ideas. And as long as I got a good editor that knows how to tell me, hey, man, you know, might want to trim, cut, spice, fix, this is great, what have you. And I've always had good editors. I'm lucky about that. Then I'm going to be a better writer. And then if I'm interesting enough to speak with someone like you, and I appreciate that, I'll be a better citizen in the publishing space because I know something. I can go a little deeper. I can be a subject matter expert. I can sit on a panel now. I can respond to a call for information from Publishers Weekly, shelf awareness or something. Now I know something. And when you know something and you want someone to learn something from you, that's the definition of authenticity. And we spent about a few years trying to pinpoint authenticity. I wrote a book about Black folks. Everybody thought it was good, therefore it was authentic, and Blackness was authentic. And then somebody else wrote a book about being a woman, and that felt good, and then that was authentic. I found out what authenticity is. It's real simple. I don't mind sharing. The inherent goodness of the writer and their intention to modify your view of the world as reader is the authenticity everyone else is searching for. It doesn't depend upon anything of the material self and then in the 5 senses. Do I know something? And do I feel that it's a disservice for me to withhold what I know in case others wish to know it? Then that's the most powerful position from which you can do anything, including writing. And we all can do that. We just may not be able to do it comfortably. But, hey, man, I think the past year or so, comfort takes a second to evolution and adaptation. And if there's an opportunity to adapt, I'm going to take it. And so being able to be a salient voice about things that matter to more people than just me is always going to make me a better writer. It's going to also make me a better reader. In the end, it's going to make me a better person. And hopefully, if somebody is really into the experience that they get of me and the experience that they get of my work, I hope that's the thing that they come away with the most. Like I'm doing what I feel like I was born to do, and I only mean to help. And if it bothers you, if it makes you uncomfortable, if it steers you up inside, guess what? It's a good thing it was just in a book. And it happened. And you're different. And you're welcome. And now run out there and affect someone else. Mm-hmm. Go out there and serve someone else's world's appearance a little bit. And you know what? It creates smiles.
it does. And, it wasn't a lot of smiles with a Negro in Ofe. I was grinding hard to try to establish myself. I'm looking forward to some smiles from here on out. I like writing. I like books. I like the people. I like the industry. And I'm here. So, yeah, man, it's been fun. And being scholarly, being studious, and working hard has made it more fun.
Fabulous. Will there be more Elliot Caprice stories?
Oh, yeah. I owe Bronzeville one more Elliot book before they let me write something else. So we are finishing up the third book in the series, and that'll be available sometime around Black History Month next year. I guess we're going to do a nice, cool, relevant marketing push. But I'm also reading the narration on these audiobooks for A Negro in an Ofe and Ace Boon Coon back to back, because we have a bit of a production effort with the Screen Actors Guild and me, and a few well-known actor friends of mine and me are going to create what I hope to be a lovely audiobook for all three books that will be available soon, that will help flesh out the world and bring the history to the fore and help make it a hearable auric experience as well as a reading and hearts experience. So it's just reading audiobooks, writing another Elliot Caprice book, and push-ups. I gotta lose the COVID-10. My doctor said, dude, blood pressure went up 10 points, and I'm like, all right, I'm writing, I'm reading, and I'm push-ups.
All right, that's good. That's good. You gotta stay active.
Word up.
Last break of the podcast. Stay tuned for more with author Danny Gardner after this break. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back. Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets Podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets Podcast is for you. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and the conclusion of my interview with author Danny Gardner.
Where can people find you on the internet? Do you have a website? What social media are you on, etc.?
My website is in neglect because, I'm a partner and my publisher. I don't handle getting the books out. I'm a different dude. So you can go to bronzevillebooks.com and read all about me in the books. Ace Boon Coon Tales of Elliot Caprice. They're all there. The Negro in Ofe. You can see my stablemate. The great Gal Massey's got something coming out. Les Edgerton, Nikki Dolson. Folks like that. I'm not the only good author over there. And you can also find me.
I've had Nikki on the podcast actually.
Isn't she fabulous? I think
she is definitely fabulous. Yes.
Bronzeville is on the map doing good things with authors, and I'm one of them, and I'm happy. So I'm going to give them another book, and you can find me there. And if you also like, I am on Instagram at Danny Gardner LA, and I kind of post, every once in a while. And also, you can find me on Facebook at Danny Gardner ACW for actor, comedian, writer. That's my page for 20 years or whatever. So come on by. Maybe a giveaway sometime. I don't know. And it's sort of like this, the stay tuned, the coming soon site for me right now. So, and then, like I said, I'm always adapting. I'm always growing. Seems like there's a new platform every day, and it doesn't pay to not be on these platforms. So if you look for me, if you search for me, I'll be there. And
I'm always happy for folks to reach out. If my work makes you feel something and you want to talk about it, come on at me, man. I'm all on the platforms. We can talk. I'll even answer the phone if you call me on the messenger or something. Just don't call me crazy, but I'll answer.
Well, I think next up you're going to need to start doing TikTok videos.
You know, maybe that's why I'm doing push-ups.
There you go. There you go. We have talked about a variety of different topics today as we've gone through talking about the series. But is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to mention or bring up at this point?
Yeah. I would like everyone in the book business to take a moment and ponder the results of the pandemic and fluctuations as a result amongst printing and distribution entities, and the detrimental effect to the American supply chain that we're all affected by in this game. And I would like everyone to consider that while we have been lured into the false construct that bookstores don't make us sales, they do. And they're the most important sales you have. Bookstores and libraries make you famous and put you on a pedestal. And right now, bookstores are struggling in the American supply chain, and bookstore owners and employees are often in need of charity in order to make their ends meet for these venues to remain open for us. And so I invite everyone to get involved with what the American Bookseller Association and my California chapter, which is Caliba, has involved themselves with as far as making certain that bookstores stay open, that we have a thriving retail market to go along with the supply chain, and that new technologies in printing and distribution come on board so that we won't get hit with the double whammy of a pandemic that makes essentials necessary, books that are considered non-essential by the largest supply chain mover in America. And, oh, yeah, somebody felt that squeezing 3 million Obama books pre-sale through that tiny opening was a good idea at the expense of every other small author, every other bookstore owner, every other librarian that's in the collection development that just really needs to keep her community happy. It's great to be famous. I've been famous 2-3 times sometimes. People need help. And we should all, because we all have separate lives, right? We all have an expertise, we all have a passion, and we all have a profession. We all have a trade, something like that. Try to find a way to get involved in trade associations that benefit the industry, or else we'll all just be self-publishing. And, I'll be like Thoreau, printing copies of Walden and handing them out with bags of free beans I've farmed. I don't want to live like that. I want to go to a bookstore. I want to have a reading. I want to get sales. I want to find something for a kid inside something other than a Barnes & Noble. And if we don't get active, and if we don't consider how we wish for them to always be there for us, we won't have them. And I love bookstores, and I would like to have some. And so the American Booksellers Association, see how you get involved, talk to your favorite bookseller, find out how you may be able to help, and just figure out where you may be able to put your dollars. Even if you have to wait a few extra days for a book, buy it from your local. Buy it from a mail order retailer. Buy it from somebody across the country from you. But please try to support your local bookseller, your local independent bookseller, and your local libraries. Because when we lose those spaces, we're not getting them back. And they're in jeopardy. I've learned a lot this past year, and I have spent a lot of time with leaders in these organizations and these institutions, and the struggle is real. People need to eat to sell these books, and they need to feel confident that their businesses will be open next year as they sell your books. Get involved. Try. You'll be happy that you did
They're the best places in the world. Just show up and try to help out instead of always buying or selling something. Show up, sell something, buy something, and just ask as you move a wheelbarrow for somebody. We'll make it, but we need these spaces, and I need them, and I'm selfish. So y'all help me save these bookstores so I can keep writing.
No, I don't think there's anything selfish about that necessarily. We need bookstores. We need libraries. We need all of those places. Well, Danny, I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me, not only about the new book, Ace Boon Coon, but also about the Elliot Caprice series, I guess, trilogy, and just life in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you again to Danny for joining me to talk about his Elliot Caprice series, specifically the second book, Ace Boon Coon. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you are a fan of historical fiction or if you are wanting more representation in your mysteries, you should definitely check out this series. It will give you maybe a different perspective. I don't know what you read, but it certainly gave me a chance to look at history in this time period from a different perspective. And of course, it's a mystery and there's lots of action and you get to know new characters. So check out this book. Again, the first is called A Negro and an Offay, and the second is Ace Boon Coon. It is the Elliot Caprice, the Tales of Elliot Caprice, and it is the mystery series starring Elliot Caprice. Imagine that. Same as the series title. So thank you again to Danny for joining me, but thank you as always to you, my listeners. I hope that you will join me again next time when I will be speaking with Gabrielle Robinson about her new book, Oppie's Berlin Diaries, My Quest to Understand My Grandfather's Nazi Past. So it is a memoir about exactly that, her quest to understand her grandfather's involvement in the Nazi Party and what that meant. She was very young at the time of the war, and her grandfather, of course, was her grandfather, and she had this image in her head of him and this relationship with him. And this book is just amazing in the unflinching ways that it explores that past and what it means and how it has affected or not her perceptions of her grandfather and her history. So join me for that interview. In the meantime, as always, if you are a fan of this podcast, please do me the favor of following on social media, writing a review, doing all those wonderful things that helps us to get this podcast out to more listeners and readers such as yourselves. They really do help, and they are very, very much appreciated. Speaking of social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, please do find the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and interact with me. Love to hear from readers. Hope you're having a great day. Hope that great day continues, and I hope that day involves plenty of time for you to get yourself lost in a good book. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.